Okay, so it's the next day and I baked these last night. This one I've started to sand. This one I haven't done anything to. On this one to finish the sides, because when you look at the sides they definitely look goofy. Here's our marbled back. That piece of clay on it. Oops, I'll get that off after. Piece of rock clay. Here's my backing that I did with that swirled. And then I took the blue and the black and swirled that together, and I'm going to use that for another one. Why not, right? I think they look cool. Anyway, so when we do want to do something to finish off the sides, and there's multiple ways to do this. You can paint it with acrylic and then seal it with something. Samantha Burrows on Jessima Designs does a smear, and that's what I did on here. But that I found for some people can be very challenging. I've seen on some of the posts, and even myself, I struggle with that. So if you're not good at the smear, there's a couple different ways to do a nice side, and I'll show you one way today. So I'm going to use an extruder, and this is an extruder way. Maybe another time I'll show you a different way. But with the extruder, what you're going to do is, this is my middle round circle, and depending how thick your pendant is will depend how big of a circle you'll need, and you'll see in a second. You could also use these, but these will give you a thicker strip, unless you know it's that wide, unless you maybe roll it through your pasta machine. So I found an easy way to get a border, and it will look different than the smear, but it may be easier for you. I don't know. I'll throw it out there and see what you think. So extrude whatever, and I'm going to use the bright green pearl. So just extrude a long strip, a long enough strip that will make it around your pendant, obviously, and cut that off. Next is you're going to roll it through your pasta machine, and most clayers have a pasta machine. So roll it through your pasta machine to make it however thick you want it, and to stretch it out wide so it can fit over the side of your pendant. I found I like setting 5 on mine. I don't think it's too thick. I can still handle it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to roll this out on setting number 5. And obviously I'm not widening it. I'm going from one end to the other end to make it skinny. I'm doing that right now. And if you don't have an extruder, if you can roll out an even snake, go for it. I'm not very good at rolling out even snakes. Oops. So next thing we need is obviously some Bacon Bond or some liquid clay to get this a little tacky and to make sure it adheres well. So I'm just going to put a little bit. You do not want too much, because otherwise it'll slip off. And you don't want it to like slip off on you. You want it to just be a little tacky. So I'm just spreading that on. Try not to get it on the front of your pendant, because you'll see it a little bit, but we're going to sand anyways, so that won't matter too much, actually. Okay, and then take a piece of your snake, and you see how it rolled it out nice and thin and flat. Let me zoom in a little bit more. And make an even end. Okay, and we're going to set this on our pendant, and I'll probably recut that end anyways. And so for me, that middle circle on I got that extruder off of Amazon. I think it was the cheapest one I could find. It doesn't even have a brand on it. So that's my middle circle, and then just lay it on and kind of gently pat it down. So this will give you a visible border, but not too visible. So just lay it on there. And I chose the bright green rather than the black, because I think it matches the whole pendant. And it's okay if it sticks up a little bit, because we could shave it off. And then cut your ends flush. So there's my ends. Like that. Lift that guy off and get that little piece of excess. That's how I cut it flush and make sure it will fit, is by cutting both the ends. Okay, so now let's do some smoothing. So I'm going to smooth this. One, make sure it's all the way covering. And then I'm going to take the base of my finger or your palm, a smoother part of your hand. Usually your fingertips tend to be a little rough, or mine at least do. And kind of smooth it out. You know, and I know these project tutorials get a little long. I do try to give you as many tips as I've learned over time to help you out. It's hard to cut out parts to decide what parts people don't need and what parts people do need. So you can always fast forward if something becomes too boring for you. Like if you know well how to do that, well then do it the way you do it, you know. Okay, and then if for some reason it was a little wide and it's hanging over, you can take your blade, your tissue blade, and cut it flush. Again, we're going to sand some, so we sanded if anything was sticking up, we'd sand it off. For me, I find this gives me a better even thickness. I hate when it's not even thickness. So I've seen some people do it where they roll out a sheet of clay and then pull it up the sides and then shave it off like we just did. And I can't ever get that thickness even. So this roller tends to work fairly well for me, doing it like this, if the smear is not working for me. Some pieces the smear works great on, and other pieces the Jessima smear doesn't work super great. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with the Jessima smear, I think, you know, definitely look up Jessima Designs, and I'm pretty sure she has tutorials on that. That's not on her Patreon account, but she shows it on a lot of her projects, how to finish her beads. So if you watch any of her project tutorials, she has at the end, you got to watch the whole thing obviously, she has a lot of tutorials on how to do her smear to finish off the sides of the bead. So that's one way you can finish off a bead, is doing that. And I wanted to show you that way if you're struggling with the smear. So I baked this one last night. I did this. So I'm going to get this one in the oven for its final bake. The back's done, the front's done, and the sides are done. I'm going to shave off the back actually quickly just to make sure if there was any hanging over, I get that. And this back's textured, so might as well save what I can rather than bake it and sand it off. Why not? I know most of us know clay's expensive, especially when you want to do a lot of projects. So that's sticking up a little bit right there. So just, your fingers are a great tool. You can feel a lot with your fingers. So this one is definitely gives you a border. Okay, and the smear doesn't give you as much of a border. And I did make two other ones with a mix of my pink rose cane and my blue rose cane that I'm baking right now. So I'll get these in the oven, and then when we come back, I'll do a quick demo on how I finish with sanding and buffing, and I'll apply resin, and then I'll show you how they look when they're done. And we will be done this tutorial. Be back in a minute. Okay, so these two are out of the oven. This is the one we did together with the border. This is the one I did with the smear. And then these were two other ones I did with the pink and blue rose, or the pink rose cane, the blue rose cane, the leaf, and then I had another just translucent. So just some different ideas that you can use. I mean, this is just a simple translucent white cane that I thought to hide the seam. So the next part, we're going to sand. And I usually use wet dry sandpaper. I have a bowl of sanding water. Yes, I did use it the other day. I haven't drained it yet, so it's got some sand dust stuff down in there. You do want to sand polymer clay wet because it's not great for you to breathe in the particles. So if at all possible, definitely breathe it or sand it while it's wet. So I start at a 400 and go all the way up to 3000. I do have higher sandpapers, but I find, especially with resining and then using my Dremel to buff, that's high enough. I can get a great shine like that. So first thing, I'll dip my pendant a little bit, and then I'll also dip my sandpaper some in the water and get it a little wet. I have a towel here on the side just to wipe up any scraps. And I'm just going to sand. I won't show you all of this, but I'll show you a little bit on one of them. Now the main part you want to watch out for are your leaves, because they were put on last, so they are slightly higher, not much, but slightly higher than any other part. So just be, you know, cautious of them. Don't sand them off. You know, if you have to sand them off, go ahead, especially if you're finishing a different way than resin. I use UV resin, which I won't show in this tutorial, but because there's a lot of tutorials on resin out there. But just feel it with your finger. There's a little seam right here I'll work on. You know, you definitely want to do the edges lightly. With this kind of border that I showed you with the extruder, you do have a little more clay to sand, so you can sand it nice. With the smear, there's really not much there, so you really can't, with your higher grits maybe, to buff it up a little bit. But my buffer is all I'll use on the side here because I don't want to remove too much. But on this one that we did, because it has a decent layer, you can sand the sides some. I mean, you don't want to take it all off, but obviously smooth it. And you do want to do a light sand on the back. Nothing too crazy, just a light sand on the back. This part of my border is a little thicker than the other part. You can round the top off a little bit. You know, just a light sand on the back. Usually my Dremel with buffing tends to get that. So I'm going to go up through the grits. I'm going to do 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000. And that's where I'll end, and I'll come back when I'm done all of these to show you my next part. Okay, so I've sanded, and a couple of them I've buffed. So let me show you on these two. So this one is sanded, and this one is sanded and buffed. And before I resin, I know resin can shine it up. I like to get it as smooth as possible. I don't know, it's just me. So the buffing does a lot. Remember, our rose cane is souffle, so it'll never get as smooth as the Primo. But, I mean, you can see the difference in the amount of shine with the buff. So I'm going to show you how to do one, because I've already done these ones as well. I don't like this one as much. I don't mind this one here. I like these two. I like this shape better, I think, for this type of pendant. So I'm going to show you how I do this one. And in my polishing polymer clay video, I have the links to these. If you want the links to these that I got off of Amazon, let me know. It comes with 2 in the pack, and they come with a whole bunch in the pack. I use a Dremel 4000, and when I polish, I'm about on speed 15. I hit the lock button. The chuck is opened by twisting it open. I put my bit down in. I'm still on the lock button, and I tighten. Once you get it tight, let go of the lock and pull on it, and that should be good. So when I buff, I'm going to just do one. I'm going to go over in the orange, and I'll do the sides too, and then the finer one is the white one. I'll do that after. So I'm going to do this now. And you can touch this with your fingers. It's not that rough. It will remove clay the faster you go and the harder you push. So if, like, on your edges you have little bits coming off, you can buff those right off with this. Once you get done sanding and polishing, you can really see the 3D of it. It's kind of cool. And I don't mind doing this, so I don't mind taking my time. If you resin, you probably really don't need to do this, but I don't know, I just like to. And then I'll do my edges. Shut it off, wait till it stops. I'll hit my lock button to unlock it, untwist, put my fine one in. This is what we get from that orange one, so I'll show you again the difference. So it has a shine, but not as much of a shine. Okay, so then with the white one, we'll get even more. I just want to make sure I twisted that in. I did. Okay. I do try to avoid my accent canes so I don't possibly go too much on them and sand them off a little bit. So I do my edges more. I'm really putting very light pressure. This one I didn't finish the sides, which I may decide to after, but I just wanted to show you guys these. So this is now sanded and buffed. What's cool is, you know, if you look down in there, you can see the other roses underneath, which I like. This one, I didn't get a lot in here for some reason. There's a rose down there. And this one, I tried to overlap more, so you can see a rose under there, some under there. There's a rose under there. There's one under this guy. So when you overlap them, you definitely get them sitting behind each other. And the leaves go quite translucent too. So next thing I'll do is I'll apply UV resin, and I will show you the final UV pieces, just so you can see the whole start to finish of the pieces. But I'm not going to show you the process of resining just because I don't think there's enough videos out there. If people say, hey, I want to know how you resin them, I'll show you eventually. But for now, this video is getting way too long. Okay, so I only resined 3 of them. One I kept because I don't tend to resin them all. So here's one of them. Now that it's completely done, I'm trying out a new resin. I should have taken the torch to it a little bit more because I got a few little bubbles in there. I could put another thin coat, and that would give me more of a dome. So that's the one we did together. And then this one, pretty much same exact thing we did together, except for that one I got a couple bubbles right there, but overall. And then here's the other one using the leaf cane and my 2 rose canes. Yeah, I'm definitely trying out a new UV resin. It's a quick cure UV resin, so I do get slight warping of my pendant, which you can see there. The corners are raised very slightly These guys are thinner. It raised very slightly, but it cures in 2 to 4 minutes compared to 30 minutes. See, it's slightly warped, but not crazy, for these are really thin, so I'll drill through it and put a bail. But I think they came out really cute. I think they're super cute pendants. Cool mica shift, cool rose cane, a leaf cane, you know, just have fun with your canes and make some cool beads or pendants or bracelet, anything. You can have a good time with this. So I hope this gives you inspiration for your projects. I hope it helps, something helps out of it. If it was helpful for you, or if it did give you inspiration, please like and share. You can also subscribe if you want to see future videos. These pendant tutorials probably will take longer than other simple things. It's kind of just the nature of the beast. It's very difficult to decide what to cut out and what to keep in. So, you know, I can make them in 1 or 2 parts. You can pause and watch again. YouTube is very good about picking up right where you left off, as long as you're in your own account. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. Today is Tuesday for me, Tuesday night in the Northeast Vermont and Northeast US and Vermont. So it's about 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna get in the shower, get ready for work tomorrow, make dinner, do that whole thing. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.